Good afternoon. On behalf of all of us, I'd like to welcome and thank you for coming and joining our celebration of Ben's life. This might not come as a surprise, but I experienced a lot of writer's block writing this. Unsurprisingly, I will be diving straight into the Rush lyrics. Starting with that image from Grace Under Pressure. Suddenly you were gone from all the lives you left your mark upon. That one is different now. It's hard for me to not be rushed and prep all of this, so fair warning will be sprinkled throughout the rest of our current section. I don't want to ramble on and on about qualities, so probably won't. I'm not going to do it, actually. Can you guys all hear me fine?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. No? How about now?
Yes.
No.
Okay. No? I'll use the mic. All right, so the four things I'm going to discuss are his obsession with technology, his love for music, which was highly contagious and has infected many of us, his love for food, and his passion for flight. Starting with tech, I've always found it really fitting that Dad grew up with Rush, and their musical complexity combined with their lyrical profundity really fit him. He was about, I think, 13 when Rush's Signals album dropped, and I've always found the tracks Analog Kid and Digital Man remind me of him. Probably due to playing it a lot when I was a kid, and it may be one of their greatest. Some of us might disagree with that. But I would do that very often as a kid, every night on one of the CDs that my dad burned for me. And I think at the time, I didn't really realize how awesome it was, you know? We were making essentially mixtapes and playlists as kids before they were a thing. And playlist wasn't even a word then. And this was before the iPod existed. And that reference feels pretty damning to me, but maybe not so much for others. We were riding the digital tide, and we did that because of Dad. We were all playing PC games before it was the cool thing to do, and it was just, we were extremely fortunate to grow up very computer literate, and that was because of our dad. And I think he really grew up as an analog kid during the infancy of the digital age, and it really showed his interest, career choice in life. He was always interested in different techs, whether it be computers, cameras, vehicles, guns, etc. His appetite for knowledge was ravenous, as many of us know. And I get it, sometimes you just have to know how something works. And I'm really grateful for the exposure that we got as kids to that sort of stuff. It served us well. One of the first things I had to do when I was doing undergraduate research in college was set up a Linux environment on a laptop. And many of you might not know what the hell I'm talking about. The average person probably doesn't, but I did. My dad had me setting up Linux environments on computers when I was in 5th grade. And I'm sure I've been playing handheld the entire time as a kid, but that sense of familiarity and confidence, you are best to find elsewhere. Sorry. It really served me well, and I think it taught all of us that we're capable of anything. That it wasn't, a facade for arrogance or anything like that. It was just competence and willingness to tackle our problems. The next thing I'd like to discuss is music, and one of the core components one of my core memories of my dad was getting in the car. It was in 2011 or 2012 when it was shortly after Rush's Clockwork Angels had come out. I don't remember where we were going, but I remember we were northbound on 133rd at Row, and he asked, "Do you want to listen to the new Rush album?" As if I had a choice, or would say no. And he cranked volume up, skipped to the title track, and it was just quintessential Rush. And that was just such an awesome moment for us. And I'm sure all of us have similar memories with music and my dad. And I probably came pretty close to finding out the speakers multiple times in that Lexus. Fortunately, I never did though. And my dad and I always connected to music, whether it was talking about Lowen University's breakdowns of bass lines, watching Danny Carey play Numa live. If you haven't seen that, you should watch it. Googling over Rush, and we would just talk about music all the time. And it has been and always will be a way in which I connect with my dad. And I know I'm not alone in that. he was pretty clever about finding ways to enjoy his favorite music. I remember going down to Stockton Lake one summer night, sitting in the backseat of the Honda Odyssey, and we were watching Rush and Rio on the TV. Obviously, the perfect road trip movie, right? And you know, that was Rush playing to an absolutely ecstatic audience in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and probably one of the best live recordings of Rush ever, if you haven't watched it. And I don't remember if we asked, you know, Dad to put that on, but probably didn't, and I sure am glad that we did get to watch it. I still own the 3 CDs that accompanied those DVDs, and I listen to them regularly. And yet another example of connection through music was around Christmas time. Sarah was telling us about Benjamin's obsession with Dracula by Rob Zombie. And Dad and I both found this to be hilarious, and his laugh, as many of you knew it, was unforgettable. For the unenlightened, Dracula is pretty intense, and you listen to it for hours on repeat, as Tyler can also attest to. And I'm sure, you know, Dad seems to have infected another one with the bug. I'm sure Tyler also was, you know, influential in that. But we all connected with him through music, and it's a great thing. And I'd ask each of you at some point to listen to some Rush if you haven't or never have. A minimum, pick an album, and pay attention. I hope it stirs something in you, because I knew it stirred something in Dad. The next thing I'd like to talk about is food. And we'll start with a quote here from Rush's Territories. Maybe, actually, I do think this is the greatest album of all time, Power Windows. The quote goes, "Better people, better food, and better beer. Why move around the world when Eden was so near?" And for those of you that knew my dad, he was a very adventurous eater. I remember him jokingly saying one of the worst things about moving down to the lake, which I believe to be his Eden, was the massive decline in the availability of ethnic food. His love for Indian and Thai food was notorious. Pretty much every time he was in town, we were grabbing one of 3 things. It was either Indian, Thai, or a door grill. Because there was one like 15 minutes from my office. And I still remember being a kid going to Ruchi's and watching him, you know, grab like a little spice dish on the way out. And you know, I thought, I'll try that too. And I was repulsed by it. It has various spices in it, but one of them is like star anise, and it tastes like black licorice, which many people are not a fan of. I've come around though. I now am able to appreciate the flavor of anise. And I was recently looking through my old Scout cookbook, and I'm pretty sure I had picked he had marked the meals I made when I was writing my first class, and I'm pretty sure I was able to pick all the meals. However, I don't have to try very hard when reading this to convince you that he picked the meals. For dinner, we had wood-batch jambalaya, which was a favorite amongst the adult leaders who tried it. For breakfast, the Scout breakfast sandwich, which was essentially a peanut butter sandwich hybrid with French toast. And for lunch, we had cast iron pizza pie. That's my cue to restart the video for it pauses. Sorry about that. But yeah, the Scout breakfast sandwich is what really makes me think he might have been the one to pick it, because it seemed like something he would have naturally invented himself. The man simply loved peanut butter. I remember oftentimes as a kid, when he'd come home from work, the first thing he would do would be spoonful of peanut butter. And much like music, his love for peanut butter spread to all of us. And I think it's he put peanut butter on pancakes, and even in chili. Now, some of you might be wondering, what the hell is that about? If you haven't tried it, give it a shot. My thinking is that it was some sort of attempt at bringing in Thai flavor profile to chili, maybe. I don't know. But either way, peanut butter was on a lot of things, and I think it might be a derivative of Papa Ron's famous goober waffle. And I guess I forgot to cite that Aubrey was the one that brought up the peanut butter chili, because I somehow totally forgot about that. But give it a shot. It's not bad. The last thing I'd like to talk about is our obsession with flight. Did I say our? say our because I know it spans the generations in the Rodgers family. Dad had us addicted to the sound of freedom from a young age. Aviation has been and always will be part of our lives. In 2023, Dad and I went down to San Juan and stayed with Steve Hawkins, wonderful husband, and spent time there in San Juan. And it was one of the best. It was the best air show I've ever gotten to watch. And it was the pinnacle of our shared air show experience. It was 5 days of top-tier acrobatics, thunderous afterburner, stench of jet fuel, and mild weather and cold beer. Pretty hard to beat. And it was an absolute blast, and very reminiscent of our family trip to Oshkosh in the early 2000s. Another reference that feels damning to me. In August of 2024, I took two of my dad-derived hobbies, aviation and photography, and combined them and did air-to-air photography. And the entire day, all I could think was, man, I can't wait to town. And when I got off the plane, I ran down to where my phone was and immediately called them. And I could really hear, when you're talking to somebody on the phone, you can sometimes hear their smile through the phone, and I could hear him smiling the entire time instead of counting my day. And I'm definitely understanding the importance of aviation in our lives. But I think the following bit really drives it home. To this day, I still drop everything I'm doing to go see whatever's flying overhead. And I think that's one of my favorite things my dad did for me. It's simple, but it never fails to bring me joy. And I definitely struggle writing this section because there's a lot I could mention, but I think that really does sum it up. It's something that will forever bring me joy. And I'm not the only one with that. Yeah, that was the hard part. You might need to get me back for this. I'll close with some more lyrics, this time from Rush's The Garden, off their final studio album, Clockwork Angels. And we'll see if I can get through this whole thing. It is one of many possible worlds, all for the best, or some bizarre test. It is what it is, and whatever. Time is still within a jest. The arrow flies when you dream. The hours tick away. The cells tick away. The watchmaker keeps to his schemes. The hours tick away. They tick away. The measure of a life is a measure of love and respect. So hard to earn, so easily burned. In the fullness of time, a garden to nurture and protect. It's a measure of a life. I ask you to look around. This is his measure, and it's copious. Now each of us must go forward and tend to our gardens, and tend to them carefully as he would have. For we have the great responsibility of tending to his memory. Thank you.